said, give me advice, Ya Rasulullah. He said, fear Allah wherever you are. Anytime you do a sin, follow it up immediately or soon with a good deed. That's all. Tamshuha, it'll wipe your last sin away. The Quran for me became a routine recitation every day. It was something that I couldn't leave. And in psychology, I've read once that if a person continues a particular habit for a number of days, they don't know exactly, some say 20, 30, 40 days, it becomes more difficult for you to stop that habit. Truly, in the book Ad-Da' wa Dawa by Ibn Qayyim, he mentions a formula. He says every habit begins with a thought. If you do not repel that thought, it becomes an idea. An idea becomes a plan. If you don't repel the plan becomes an action. And if you don't repel the action over time becomes a habit. And if you don't repel the habits, they can become addictions. He's talking about sins. But you can also reverse it and start with a good thought, turn it into an idea, plan for the good, and make it your action. Alas, a new you is born. So one of the things is you must recite the Quran every single day. Impossible for any Muslim to let a day pass without having a certain time in their day in which they recite it. Recite it in the car, recite it when you're walking, recite it when you're at school, at work, recite it when you go to sleep, just before you go to sleep, recite it everywhere, brothers and sisters. You might not know how to read it in Arabic, then recite what you have memorized. Surah Al-Ikhlas, reciting it 3 times, like reciting the whole Quran. Well, recite Al-Fatiha. If you don't know anything else, you're probably a new Muslim. Maybe you don't know. Recite. And have a little bit of a time to read the meanings of the verses. Very simple meanings. Start with Surah Al-Hujurat, for example, with little tiny words, every word, and try to implement it in your life. Very easy. But it needs us to make action. My brothers and sisters, as the Quran became part of my life, I'll tell you how that happened. And this is good for some parents and some children who are in the audience. My father, again, he bought us a little video cassette tape. Now you, the new generation, I don't know if you know what a video cassette tape is. You know what it is? It's black, it's big. Well, I should have brought one here just to test you out. Little video cassette tape, you put it into the VCR. Do you know what a VCR is? Anyway, that's the way we used to watch videos and movies. My father didn't let us watch normal TV, so he brought us alternatives. And the alternative, I remember this particular videotape was called Qisasun wa Ibar. Stories and lessons. Stories and lessons. My brother and I loved this videotape. We memorized it. And in that, there is a group of students and their teacher. And then it goes to another scene where the same students are enacting a play of one of the stories in the Quran. There were about 30 different stories. That means through that imagery, as a child, I was only 8 or 9 years old, I knew the stories, half of the stories in the Quran, because half of the Quran is stories. And whenever I came to recite the Quran, and even though my Arabic wasn't the best because I was born in Australia and raised before I went to Lebanon, just because of that play and few of the words, I knew what the story was about. Suddenly, the Quran became a healing process for me. An enjoyable moment, as if I had a friend that I meet and visit and spend some time with every day. Have you ever heard this phrase? Make your book, the book is your best friend. The Quran is your heart garden, wallahi al-azim. And Allah says in the Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Do they not ponder and reflect upon the Quran? Or is it the case that the heart has its own locks on it? Did you know that the heart has its own lock and that you can open it or close it? The heart itself has its own lock. And if you abandon the Quran, your heart abandons you. If you abandon the Quran, your heart abandons you. If you resort to another form of enjoyment other than the Quran, your heart becomes that as well. So be careful what your ears hear and what your eyes see and what your mouth say. And I'll give you this very simple advice about how to fix that. We all sin. Nobody is meant to be a perfect Muslim. So don't ever think that you have to be always on a high alert of spirituality. Rasul ﷺ advised Muaz, he was only about 12 or 13 years old. Most of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ were young. He said, give me advice, Ya Rasulullah. He said, اتق الله حيثما كنت. Fear Allah wherever you are. Keep that in your mind. وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا. Anytime you do a sin, follow it up immediately or soon with a good deed. That's all. تَمْحُهَا. It'll wipe your last sin away. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. And interact with people with the best of character. He said, Ya Rasulullah, if I say La ilaha illallah after a sin, will that wipe it away? He said, among the best of good deeds. Do you see how simple it is? Very simple. It's like a sponge. If you don't keep washing the sponge away and you keep cleaning with it, you're going to have a dirty table. There's no point.